The words hit me like a slap across the face, but I didn't flinch. I just kept slicing into my prime rib as if Uncle Richard hadn't stood up at the Carter family Christmas dinner and declared, "Emily doesn't belong in this family business." Aunt Donna clinked her glass eyes glittering with satisfaction. "Blood is thicker than water," she added. Brad smirked. Vanessa giggled, and for a moment it felt like every face around that polished mahogany table turned against me. I smiled politely, sipped my water, and let them believe they'd won. What none of them realized was that the charity case they dismissed so easily had been secretly propping up their empire for 3 years. And now, with one phone call, I could bring Carter Construction to its knees. It wasn't always like this. Or maybe it always was, and I just refused to see it until the words finally cut through me like glass. When I was 7, the world ended in a single phone call. My parents had been driving home from a winter concert when black ice stole the car from the road. They never made it back. I remember the police officer kneeling in front of me, his voice careful like he was afraid I'd shatter if he spoke too loudly. "Emily, honey, you'll be going to live with your Aunt Grace now." I nodded, too stunned to cry. I clutched the little snow globe my mom had bought me at the concert, shaking it over and over until the flakes blurred my vision. Aunt Grace opened her door with tears in her eyes and arms that wrapped around me like a blanket. She whispered, "You're safe here. You'll always be safe with me." I wanted to believe her. But behind her, Uncle Richard stood stiff and expressionless, like he was watching a burden being delivered to his doorstep. His words came later sharp as nails. "We're raising you out of duty to your mother. Don't forget that." I never forgot. Holidays became a cruel reminder. At Thanksgiving, Brad and Vanessa carved the turkey with silver knives while I set the table and was told I should be grateful to sit there at all. At birthdays, my cousins opened shiny gifts while mine were practical things: socks, notebooks, the occasional secondhand sweater. And every Christmas, Richard would find some way to remind me that I wasn't a real Carter. He'd smile for the photos, but later whisper, "Remember where you came from." I buried myself in books and equations in the language of numbers and machines. While Brad skipped school and Vanessa collected popularity like jewelry, I spent late nights at the library programming little circuits and scribbling algorithms on scraps of paper. The glow of the computer screen became my only safe light. When teachers praised me, Richard said it was because of extra tutoring. When I graduated valedictorian, he muttered that it was a lucky break. When I earned a full scholarship to MIT, Aunt Donna chuckled. They probably needed a minority case study. Those words lodged deep. I carried them into lecture halls, into dorm rooms where other students had families cheering for them on weekends. I never had anyone in the audience, but I learned to clap for myself. I told myself it didn't matter. One day, I would build something so undeniable they couldn't dismiss me. By 23, I founded Meridian Technologies with 2 borrowed desks and a whiteboard in a shoebox office. I didn't sleep for days coding until my fingers cramped, pitching ideas until my voice broke. Most people saw a girl in her 20s playing with gadgets. They didn't see the hunger to prove I deserved to exist in the room. Within 5 years, Meridian was worth billions, our smart construction systems changing skylines across the state. And still, I never told them. Because even as I thrived, I carried a strange habit Aunt Grace had taught me: showing up for family even when they didn't deserve it. So when Brad's gambling debts spiraled out of control and collectors circled, a mysterious check appeared. When Vanessa's wedding budget collapsed, an anonymous donor covered the shortfall. When Uncle Richard's heart surgery drained their savings insurance, miraculously reversed its denial. Each time I slipped in quietly invisible like a ghost cleaning up after their mess. Sometimes I stared at myself in the mirror and wondered, why do I keep doing this? Why am I feeding the same hands that push me away? The answer always circled back to Grace. She had loved me when no one else did, and she was part of this family. To care for them was in some twisted way caring for her too. Yet the wound never closed. Each success of mine was brushed off, each sacrifice erased. I once brought home an industry award, my face on the cover of a magazine, and Richard waved it off pretty cover. But computers won't keep food on the table. I smiled, tucked the magazine into a drawer, and told myself the recognition didn't matter. But it did. Oh God, it did. I can still picture one winter night, snowflakes gathering on the Carter house windows. I was 16, curled up in the guest room, overhearing Richard mutter to Donna in the hallway, "She's not really one of us. When Harold left us this company, he meant it for blood, not charity cases." I pressed my pillow over my ears, whispering to myself, "One day I'll show them. One day they'll need me." That day came sooner than they realized. Carter Construction stumbled after Richard's reckless expansion into Florida. Bankruptcy loomed like storm clouds. That's when a mystery investor swooped in with $50 million, restructuring debt, modernizing systems, and saving the company from collapse. Richard strutted around like a conquering king, claiming the turnaround as his genius. Donna bragged about his leadership. Brad and Vanessa celebrated their bonuses. Aunt Grace thanked God. And me, I watched in silence, knowing that I was Meridian Capital, the hidden hand that had saved them. My software ran their operations. My executives managed their books. My investment kept their doors open. The empire they praised Richard for building was held together by the girl they never wanted. I thought maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to earn me a seat at their table. But at that Christmas dinner, when Richard looked me in the eye and told the family I didn't belong, I realized the truth. No matter what I gave, no matter how much I sacrificed to them, I would always be the outsider. And for the first time in my life, instead of swallowing that pain, I felt something new, something sharp, something that whispered, "Stop waiting to be chosen. Show them who you are." The room erupted in polite laughter, but I heard the cruelty beneath it like broken glass under velvet. Uncle Richard leaned back, swirling his wine. "Brad will be taking over as vice president of operations next month," he announced proudly as if crowning a prince. "Vanessa will step in as vice president of finance. And of course, Donna will be running our new human resources department. We're keeping the company in the bloodline where it belongs." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Across the table, Brad smirked with the smugness of someone who'd never earned anything in his life. Vanessa's eyes gleamed as if her MBA suddenly meant more than the years I'd spent building an empire. Aunt Donna beamed like a queen beside her king, her glass raised in a private toast only the insiders could see. For a second, I thought maybe Grace would stay quiet like always, but her voice slipped in soft and steady. "And what about Emily Silence?" Richard's jaw tightened. He didn't like being questioned, least of all by his wife. "Emily has her own interests," he said coldly. "Her computer business keeps her busy enough." I swallowed the bitterness rising in my throat. Computer business. That was his name for a multi-billion-dollar company employing hundreds, reshaping an entire industry. To him, it was a hobby. To him, I was still the charity case. Grace pressed again, her tone firmer. "It's not just computers. She was recognized by Forbes for transforming construction technology. She's accomplished more than anyone at this table." Richard shot her a warning look. Donna rolled her eyes. Brad chuckled. Vanessa, ever the sycophant, added, "Sure, but awards don't build legacies." "Dad's right, the company needs Carters who actually carry the name." Something inside me cracked, not the fragile break of old wounds, but the deep split of a dam finally giving way. I smiled politely, lowered my fork, and said softly, "You're absolutely right. Real leadership is exactly what this company needs." They took it as agreement. Brad leaned back, triumphant. Vanessa scribbled something in a new leather planner she clearly hoped to brandish in boardrooms. Richard puffed his chest with pride. Only Grace looked at me with worry in her eyes, as if she could hear the unspoken storm behind my calm. After dinner, I helped her clear the dishes. The clatter of plates nearly drowned out Richard's booming voice from the living room as he outlined his grand vision for Carter Construction's future. Emily Grace whispered, her hand brushing mine, "Don't listen to them. You're family. More than any of them, you've shown what family means." I forced a smile. "It's okay, Aunt Grace." But it wasn't okay. It hadn't been okay for years. I lay awake that night staring at the ceiling of my loft, the city lights spilling through the blinds. Every insult replayed in my head, the dismissals, the laughter, the constant reminders that I didn't belong. I thought about the countless ways I had saved them, the anonymous gifts the debts erased, the second chances handed to them like lifelines. I thought about the empire I had built quietly while they basked in borrowed glory. And then I thought about their faces around that dinner table, so sure of themselves, so blind to the truth. A strange calm settled over me, the kind of calm that comes not from acceptance, but from decision. At 7 the next morning, I sat in my office with the skyline stretched out like a kingdom at my feet. The hum of Meridian Technologies filled the air, keyboards, clicking phones ringing, my people already shaping the future, my sanctuary, my proof. I picked up the phone. Sarah, it's Emily. On the other end, my investment manager's steady voice answered. Good morning. Reviewing quarterly reports, not today. I need you to initiate a complete divestiture from Carter Construction. There was a pause. Emily. That's $50 million in callable debt plus $20 million in ongoing contracts. They've been one of our most successful turnarounds. Are you certain I closed my eyes seeing Richard's smirk, hearing Donna's glass clink, Brad's chuckle, Vanessa's condescension? I'm certain. This will cause a serious disruption. Without us, they may not survive a year. That's the point. Full withdrawal. Today. Understood. I'll structure it properly. Contracts require 30 days' notice, but the debt we can recall immediately. Do it. When I hung up, I leaned back in my chair and stared at the city below. For years, I had been their invisible safety net, the ghost who caught them before they fell. Now I was cutting the net, letting them tumble. Not out of cruelty, out of necessity. They wanted a family empire built only on blood, then let them try to survive without the lifeline they never knew came from me. For the first time in my life, I felt the balance shift. My silence was no longer submission. It was power. And with a single phone call, I had drawn the line. I would no longer beg for a seat at their table. From now on, they would beg for mine. By mid-morning, the first domino fell. Sarah called back at 10:15 a.m., her voice crisp but edged with disbelief. It's done, Emily. The bank has been notified. Carter Construction's accounts will reflect the callable debt recall within the hour. Their cash flow just imploded. I nodded, staring out at the glass towers catching the sun. And the contract's termination notices are being couriered as we speak. Their executives, technically our consultants, will be reassigned by the end of the month. The software licenses will revert to basic mode after 30 days. They'll be running on bare bones, if at all. I felt no triumph, only the quiet certainty of a storm unfolding exactly as planned. Good. Let it ride. By 10:30, my phone lit up. Uncle Richard. Then again, then again. I let each call sink into voicemail. At 10:42, Brad's name flashed, followed by Vanessa's, then Donna's. Each one ignored. My office grew quieter somehow, the muffled hum of my team working in the background, contrasting sharply with the chaos I imagined erupting across town. At 11:15, Grace's number appeared. My chest tightened, but I answered. Emily, what's happening? Her voice carried the tremor of someone who had just heard yelling through slammed doors. Richard's in a panic. He says some investor pulled $50 million overnight. He says everything's unraveling. Do you know anything about this? I pressed my pen against the notepad, drawing circles slowly. I couldn't say. He's never sounded like this. He said the bank is calling in debts, that contracts are ending, Emily. He's terrified. You'll have to ask him, Aunt Grace. Silence. I could almost hear her putting the pieces together, though she didn't dare name them. Finally, she whispered, I just hope you're okay in all this. I closed my eyes. She meant it. She always had. I'm okay. When we hung up, I placed the phone face down and pushed it away. 16 missed calls pulsed like a heartbeat against the glass desk. I smoothed my jacket and walked out to meet a new client, a real estate developer eager to modernize his high-rises with our smart systems. I shook hands, negotiated timelines, outlined deliverables. My voice never wavered. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Carter Construction was hemorrhaging. Their project schedules, once seamless under our software, lagged as alerts began flashing red. Payroll systems hiccuped, vendor invoices bounced, and whispers rippled through the staff. Something's wrong. The money's drying up. I pictured Richard pacing his office, sweat darkening the collar of his shirt, barking orders that solved nothing. Brad probably sat in the corner refreshing his social media instead of dealing with crisis. Vanessa, clutching spreadsheets she didn't understand, insisting she could fix the cash flow. Donna, calling lawyers and being told the contracts were airtight. And Grace would be standing off to the side, watching it all collapse, her eyes heavy with quiet sorrow. At lunch, I treated myself to a corner table at a bistro, the scent of rosemary bread and olive oil comforting in its normalcy. I read through proposals while sipping mineral water, my phone buzzing relentlessly in my bag. Each vibration was another cry from a crumbling kingdom. I let them pile up like unanswered debts. By mid-afternoon, Sarah texted all notices delivered. Their leadership team resigned effective immediately. We're officially disengaged. I typed back, "Thank you. Reassign everyone. Don't look back." Around me, laughter from nearby tables floated up, strangers enjoying their day. To them, I was just another woman in a navy blazer working through lunch. They didn't see the invisible wires I had just severed the empire crumbling quietly behind the city skyline. By evening, the missed calls numbered 24. A voicemail from Richard finally transcribed on my screen. "Emily, please. Call me back. We need to talk. It's urgent." His voice was ragged, not the booming patriarch of Christmas dinner, but a man stripped bare. I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my balcony doors. The city stretched out like a living map, lights flickering on one by one. Somewhere in that grid, Carter Construction's offices still glowed, their workers scrambling in panic. And here, I stood steady, untouched. For years, I had been the silent benefactor, the invisible safety net. Tonight, I was the silent executioner, not out of vengeance, but out of truth. They wanted a company defined by bloodlines. Let them discover what happens when bloodlines alone must carry the weight of survival. As the night deepened, I set my phone to silent and placed it in the drawer. Tomorrow, the storm would break louder. But tonight, I allowed myself one rare, precious thing: peace. For the first time, their chaos wasn't mine to carry. At 7:00 a.m. sharp. The next morning, my receptionist buzzed my office. "Ms. Carter, there's a man here insisting he needs to see you. He won't leave." I already knew who it was. Through the glass walls of my corner office, I spotted him standing awkwardly in the lobby. Richard Carter. My uncle. The self-proclaimed guardian of the Carter legacy. His suit, once meticulously pressed, hung wrinkled. His hair stuck up in uneven tufts, as if he'd run his hands through it all night. For the first time in my life, I saw him stripped of arrogance. I told my receptionist to let him in. He shuffled inside, eyes darting around the expansive space, 3 floors of Meridian Technologies buzzing with activity, glass partitions, revealing rows of analysts' and engineers' art installations on the walls, the skyline glittering behind me. His gaze lingered on the success he had spent years belittling. "Emily," he said, voice hoarse. "Thank God. We need to talk." I gestured to the chair across from me. He sank into it, shoulders slumped like a man carrying the rubble of his own empire. "It's bad," he admitted. "Worse than bad. Our main investor pulled out overnight, 50 million gone. The bank is demanding repayment. Contracts are collapsing. Without the software, we can't track projects, can't bill vendors. Payroll is in jeopardy. The company is on the brink." His words spilled fast, tumbling over each other. I leaned back, hands folded in my lap, letting the silence stretch until he squirmed. "What do your lawyers say?" I asked calmly. "They say the contracts were written airtight. Whoever structured them knew exactly what they were doing. There's nothing we can do." He rubbed his temples. "Emily, I know I haven't always treated you right. But we're family. We need your help. You've got connections. Maybe you can introduce us to new investors." I tilted my head. "Investors, yes. Someone who can step in and replace what we lost. You know people. Just one introduction could save us." I opened my laptop and typed quickly, then turned the screen toward him. The homepage of Meridian Capital glowed against the glass desk portfolio. Highlights, recent turnarounds, client testimonials. One name stood prominently: Carter Construction, strategic partner. Richard squinted. "Meridian Capital. Wait, that name? They were our mystery investor." "Do you know them?" I looked him in the eye. "I am them." The words landed like thunder. His mouth opened closed, then opened again. That's impossible. I own Meridian Technologies. Meridian owns Meridian Capital. 3 years ago, I invested $50 million into Carter Construction. I saved your company from collapse. I restructured your debt, installed the management you bragged about, and provided the technology you now can't live without. Every ounce of profit you claimed as your own genius was built on me. He sat frozen color draining from his face. His voice cracked. You're telling me. All this time it was you. All this time. He blinked hard, like reality itself refused to settle. I had no idea. Of course you didn't. You never asked what I actually did. You never cared enough to know. For the first time in my life, Uncle Richard towering domineering. Uncle Richard looked small. His hands trembled against his knees. Emily, I was wrong. About everything. I'm sorry. I studied him. Are you sorry for how you treated me, or sorry because you need my money? Tears pooled in his eyes. I had never seen him cry. Both. I leaned forward slightly. 2 nights ago at Christmas dinner, you told me blood is thicker than water, that I wasn't a real Carter, and now you sit here begging the charity case to save you. He winced as if the words physically struck him. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. You meant it every time you said it over the last 23 years. He dropped his gaze. Silence thickened between us, broken only by the faint hum of my office outside the glass. Finally, he whispered, please. Think of the employees. 247 families rely on Carter Construction. If the company collapses, they'll all suffer. Brad and Vanessa, your cousins, they're counting on those positions. Donna, she needs the income. And me, Emily, I've put everything into this business. I let his plea hang in the air, remembering every time he dismissed me, every time he laughed at my achievements, every time he reduced me to a burden. Brad, I said softly. The same Brad whose gambling debts I covered while he bragged about his allowance, Vanessa who couldn't balance a budget but mocked my degree, Donna, who never once defended me but was quick to toast to my exclusion. He flinched at each name, each truth like a lash across his back. Emily, he begged, voice breaking. Don't punish them for my mistakes. I know I don't deserve it, but help us. Help them. I leaned back calm as a judge delivering a sentence. You want help, then you'll admit the truth. To me. To them. You'll tell your family that the girl you dismissed built the empire you stand on. You'll confess every insult, every dismissal, every lie. And then maybe I'll consider whether Carter Construction deserves another chance. His lips trembled. That will humiliate me. Yes, I said simply. It will. His eyes brimmed. For a man who had ruled every room he entered, humiliation was the sharpest blade. And yet he nodded slowly, broken. For the first time, the power was mine. Richard's voice cracked as he whispered, You want me to admit it all. To them, I didn't blink. Every word. No more lies. No more pretending Carter Construction was saved by your brilliance. You'll tell them who actually saved it and why you never wanted to admit it. He sat there, trembling, sweat beading at his temples. For a long time, the man who once dominated every holiday meal with booming pronouncements couldn't even raise his eyes. Finally, he nodded. If I do that, will you help us? We'll see, I said flatly. 2 hours later, I was seated in Grace's living room, the same mahogany furniture I'd grown up around, pressing in like a ghost. Brad and Vanessa lounged on the sofa, Donna perched upright with arms crossed, Richard pacing like a trapped animal. Grace sat beside me, her hand a quiet anchor on my shoulder. What's this about? Dad Brad finally muttered, annoyance dripping from his tone. I've got meetings scheduled. I almost laughed. Meetings. As if any of them meant more than posting half-baked strategies online and calling it leadership. Richard stopped pacing, turned to face his family, and inhaled shakily. I have something to tell you. Something I should have admitted years ago. Donna frowned. Richard, what are you doing? He swallowed hard. Carter Construction was not saved by me. 3 years ago, when we were weeks from bankruptcy, an investor stepped in with $50 million. That investor wasn't some anonymous fund. It was Emily. Silence. Brad blinked, confused. Vanessa tilted her head like she'd misheard. Donna's face twisted in disbelief. What are you talking about, Emily? That can't be right. It's true, Richard pressed, voice growing desperate. She owns Meridian Technologies. Meridian Capital invested in us, restructured everything, provided the software, the management, every profit we've claimed has been because of her. Brad let out a bark of laughter. You're joking, Emily. Our Emily. She tinkers with computers, she doesn't run companies. My calm smile didn't waver. Those computers built a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, Brad. While you were blowing money in casinos, I was signing contracts that paid your debts. Vanessa's cheeks flushed. No, that's not possible. If you had that kind of power, why stay quiet? I leaned forward. Because I thought family meant showing up even when you weren't wanted. I thought saving you would mean being accepted. I was wrong. Donna's voice grew sharp, brittle. Richard, tell me this isn't true. Tell me she's lying. Richard's shoulders sagged. She's not lying. I dismissed her, I humiliated her, I took credit for everything she built. I was jealous that the adopted child we treated like an obligation had achieved more than any of us. I called her names, belittled her success, made her feel like she didn't belong. And all the while, she was the one keeping us afloat. The words cracked something in the room. Brad shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa stared at the carpet, Donna's jaw clenched so tightly I thought her teeth might break. I let the silence hang before I spoke. Here's what happens now. Carter Construction will not survive another 6 months without me, but if I choose, I can rebuild it under new terms. Brad snapped, what terms? I locked eyes with him. I own 80%, effective immediately. The rest of you can earn back equity by proving your worth through actual work, not bloodlines. Brad, you're done. Fired. You've never lifted a finger that mattered. His mouth fell open. You can't do that, I just did. Vanessa's voice shook. And me. You can apply for an entry-level analyst role. If you want to learn the business from the ground up, you'll have that chance. Earn your place, earn your respect. Her lips pressed together, but she didn't argue. For once, she looked more frightened than entitled. Donna's face burned red. What about me? You can apply too if you actually qualify for a role. No more titles handed out like party favors. If you want to work, prove you can. She sputtered, but no words came. Finally, Richard asked, voice broken. And me. I studied him, the man who had once told me I was duty, not family. You'll work as a foreman. Start at the ground level. Understand what it means to actually build with your hands. No more golf courses, no more empty boasts. Sweat will earn you more than blood ever did. He looked like I'd struck him. You're serious. Completely. The room vibrated with the weight of what I'd said. No one moved. Grace's hand squeezed mine, pride and sorrow mingled in her eyes. Emily, Richard whispered, please, don't do this. We can partner. I'll give you respect, a proper seat at the table. I cut him off. I don't want your table. I built my own. This isn't about respect anymore. It's about truth. Brad's voice cracked in outrage. You're tearing the family apart. I turned to him, my voice low but steady. No, Brad. It was already broken. I'm just refusing to carry it anymore. The echo of my words filled the room louder than any shouting could have been. For once, no one interrupted me. In that silence, I realized something. The girl who once pressed a pillow over her ears to drown out cruel whispers was gone. In her place stood a woman who finally claimed her voice and the legacy she had always deserved. By the time the frost loosened its grip on the scaffold rails, the old blue signs came down. The crew laughed as the crane eased each weather-beaten rectangle to the ground. Carter Construction flaking in the pale sun like a name that had outlived its promise. New signs went up, clean slate gray, impossible to mistake from the highway Meridian Construction. The font was simple. The subline not, built by those who show up. People said it felt different the first week, though we hadn't changed the buildings we were chasing, just the way we chased them. Payroll hit on time. Safety trainings weren't box-checking exercises. They came with hazard bonuses and real drills. We put coffee on every site at dawn and added a line item to every project budget called Dignity Hard Hats that fit rest stations that weren't a folding chair and dust winter jackets with the company patch that made the guys grin like kids. It costs what it costs, I told Sarah. She nodded and didn't ask me to justify kindness on a spreadsheet. We called everyone together in the old warehouse for our first town hall. The room smelled like lumber and coffee and the rain starting up outside. I stood on the same loading dock where Richard used to shout schedules over the whine of forklifts. My voice didn't carry the way his had. It didn't need to. People quieted for me. They were listening. "I'm Emily," I said. "Some of you know me from the software. Some don't know me at all. You don't have to like the new name. But I promise you'll like the way it feels to build under it." I told them what was changing and what wasn't, that the work would still be hard, the deadlines loud, the margins tight, that we'd keep everyone who wanted to stay and we'd fight for their raises at the table as hard as we fought for steel prices. I didn't say family, I said team craft pride, words that grow roots in a person's chest without asking them who their parents were. Richard stood along the wall, a hard hat tucked under his arm, a foreman's tablet in his hand. He didn't look at me while I spoke. He looked at the crew, at the men and women who had carried his name through winters and heat domes and overnight pours. When they clapped, he clapped second, not first, and kept his head down. Brad wasn't there. HR boxed his desk in 43 minutes. Security remembered him for leaving early, more than for anything he'd built. Vanessa came in 10 minutes before the town hall began and took a plastic chair near the back, clutching a notebook like a passport. I'd offered her an analyst role at the sites. She accepted without bargaining. On her first week, she wore a pencil skirt and heels that sank into the gravel like small tragedies. By week 3, she showed up in boots, hair-braided questions sharpened by the wind. I watched the foreman stop underestimating her. I watched her stop underestimating herself. Donna didn't apply. Pride sometimes chooses emptiness over labor. I did not write to her. Aunt Grace did. The letter came back without a return address, a silence I could not fix. The first time I visited one of our new sites, spring had reached the river in silver patches, ice breaking into sheets that clinked like glass. The skeletal frame of a mixed-use tower rose against a dull sky. Welders stitched light along the seams, and the air tasted like iron and rain. Richard was there at 6, no entourage, no golf cart checking the punch list with a crew chief who had never learned to fear him. His jacket had the same patch as everyone else's. He looked up when he saw me, not startled, not angry, unsure. "Gate hinges off by a quarter," he said as if reporting to any supervisor. "We'll fix it before we leave." "Good," I said then, let a beat pass. "How's the work?" He glanced at his hands. They were chapped, the nails blunt and clean. "Honest," he said. "It's, honest." The word sat between us like a confession. I forgot what that felt like. There are apologies you can hear, and then there are apologies the wind has to carry to you across months of changed behavior. I didn't absolve him. I didn't punish him either. We watched a crane swing a pallet of rebar through the gray air. He cleared his throat. "I rehung Harold's blueprint," he said. "In the break room, next to your plaque." "What plaque?" He managed a small smile. "The one the guys made. They took the old Carter nameplate and flipped it. Burned in your line. Built by those who show up." Something loosened in my chest I hadn't realized I'd been keeping clenched since I was 7 years old, and a snow globe made winter safe for 30 seconds at a time. Nights were different now. The skyline outside my loft stopped looking like a scoreboard and started looking like a promise I'd kept. Sometimes I'd stand on the balcony with a mug warming my hands and allow memory to braid itself with the present, the mahogany table at Christmas and the folding tables at the job site where men traded jokes over chili, the magazine with my face tucked into a drawer and a laminated safety card with my signature in every foreman's pocket, the snow globe and a city that made its own weather. Aunt Grace kept making too much food on Sundays. The house still had the dent in the banister where Brad had crashed a box down the stairs the year he moved temporarily into her basement. Grace always saved me a seat, same chair, same view of the garden where she coaxed tomatoes from stingy soil. In the new quiet of our dinners, she reached across and rested her fingers lightly on my wrist like she did when I was small and nightmare-tired. "You didn't burn it down," she said one evening when the light lasted longer than winter had any right to allow. "You rebuilt it. I renamed it," I said. She smiled. "Rebuilt," she repeated like a teacher choosing the correct tense and handing it to me. Words matter. On a rainy Tuesday, a letter arrived, handwritten on lined paper torn from a site notebook. No return address, only my name in the corner. The handwriting was careful, as if the writer didn't trust his hands not to tremble. "Emily, I told the crew today why the sign changed. I told them I was afraid of you because you never needed me to be big, for you to be big. I told them I used blood as a shield for my fear. I am learning to show up. I understand if that's not enough. I'll keep showing up anyway. R." I read it twice, then slid it under the snow globe on my shelf. When I shook, the glass flakes came down over a tiny town that never changes. Outside the real window, the cranes kept moving. Vanessa stopped by my office late one Friday with mud on her boots and an Excel file without errors. She didn't fidget. She didn't preen. "Are you free?" she asked. "I'd like to walk you through a procurement model I built." She hesitated, then smiled, almost shy. "It actually works." "Show me," I said and meant it as praise not permission. Some endings are loud plates, thrown doors slammed headlines written in capital letters. Ours wasn't. Ours was the kind that settles into a structure beam by beam until you wake up one morning and realize you're safe inside it. The echo of Richard's words at Christmas blood is thicker than water still finds me sometimes. I let it pass through. I answer back with steel and schedules and Sunday dinners. Family is not a proclamation or a plaque. It's a roster signed in pencil every day you decide to show up. Aunt Grace taught me that when the world first cracked. Meridian taught me how to put weight where a thing will hold. Between those two truths, a life can stand. On the night we finished topping out the river tower, the crew handed me a marker to sign the last beam. The steel smelled like rain and electricity. I wrote my name small, and beside it a sentence I'd spent years learning to believe I belong here. Drop your thoughts and stories in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you've ever felt the sting of being the outsider in your own family, you're not alone. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell because more stories like this are coming, and trust me, you won't want to miss them.